Eric Melnick, LA Times. Did this spacecraft carry a flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder? And if so, were they armored to withstand this sort of forces?
Well, we carry a voice recorder, we carry data recorders, but they are not armored in the way that you think about commercial aircraft in a black box. We do not have that capability. It's doubtful that those avionics boxes survived. Let's go right here.
Haven Daily, News 24 Houston. Regarding the International Space Station, there was some initial concern by the public about getting supplies to the station. Can you talk a little bit more detail about what's going to be happening on Tuesday, how you're getting the supplies there, what's being taken there, and also how this accident is going to affect future deliveries?
Well, I'll leave that to the space station program to discuss in greater detail, but it was the planned progress launch bringing up the nominal supplies. The program is making every effort to ensure that the crew on orbit has all that they need to continually man the space station, and right now there's absolutely no concern for any of their consumables on board.
Jenny Blankenship with KI, CBS News in Austin. Many of us attended church services this morning for the astronauts, and I think a lot of people tend to think of them as scientists or science-oriented people, but can any of you tell me how big a role God or spirituality plays in astronauts' lives? I understand it's very strong.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I wish I had half the faith of Rick and Evelyn husband. I don't know of any finer individual or anybody that has a greater faith in his Creator, and it's been a source of strength for Evelyn. I know that she's content to know that Rick is with his Lord now, and that brings a lot of peace to her. Rick was a tremendous guy.
Samantha Levine, U.S. News and World Report. Do you have any information on the size and or weight of any pieces of material that may have broken from the shuttle on its ascent?
Are you talking about the ascent?
Yes.
We didn't have any pieces that broke away from the shuttle, the orbiter, during the launch phase. The only thing that we know of and that we're looking into is what I previously briefed, and that was the piece of foam insulation that was shed by the external tank.
Sanjay Bhatt, Palm Beach Post. You talked a little bit about the drag on the left wing and how the craft has measures it can take. Could you elaborate a little bit on whether there are any kind of optional maneuvers that the crew had to ease off of that left wing in their entry?
At this time, during re-entry, the crew is watching the flight control system do its job automatically. And they would not be alarmed. They may watch the trim. They'll have indications in the cockpit of the flight control system trying to trim out the vehicle. And if they would certainly know that the vehicle was trying to maybe yaw and roll a little bit to the left, and the flight control surfaces would respond appropriately, and just like in an airplane, they would correct it and move the orbiter and straighten the nose out and get it to the right attitude. Very small motions, very small degrees. And the crew would watch it. I'm sure they would talk about it, but there would be really no cause for alarm. The vehicle was doing what it was designed to do, and the software and flight control system were handling any disturbance.
Gentlemen, Chuck Gowdy from ABC7 in Chicago. You touched on this a little bit in that answer, but is there any evidence that the crew knew that there was a problem during the 6-minute timeline that you were just talking about? And is there evidence that they indeed did what you just said they could do?
Well, based on our familiarity with the crew and the training regiment, we know that's what they are doing during entry. We know they are monitoring flight control systems. We know that they are monitoring attitude. We train them to do that. As pilots, that is what they're going to do. So we're confident that's exactly what they were doing. We have no data, no communication, no evidence that the crew was alarmed, had any communication. We had no communication with the ground concerning these parameters that I've talked to you about. I feel certain that on board they could have talked one to another to say, look at that particular parameter. We ought to watch it. But I'm speculating that's what happened. I feel confident as pilots that's what they would do. But we have no information from the crew to the ground that will confirm what they were doing on board.
Phil Robertson with WFTV in Orlando. Going back to the discussions concerning the debris hitting the tiles, were those engineering meetings, was the discussion intense? Was there a lot of discussion about that? Was anybody even throwing up a red flag or throwing out possible contingencies or scenarios that might need to take place just in case there was some drag or anything else?
We handled that debris impact like we would do any off-nominal event. Number one, it occurred. 2, where did it hit the orbiter? 3, since it hit the orbiter, what could be any consequence of hitting the orbiter? Is it severe or inconsequential? And should we do anything about it? We went through the gamut of what we normally do. The management was involved, the technical people, the technical experts were involved, and it had a thorough discussion. Our technical experts believe the debris that hit the orbiter was inconsequential. It was not going to represent an impact to our flight control qualities or our safety. But even then, we talked about what if it did? What would we do even if it did? And we had that discussion. We talked about in our technical teams, is there a way that if we were wrong, was there a way during entry that would minimize the thermal profile? And we reminded ourselves, if you think about how we have designed this vehicle with these tiles, we fly the minimal profile today. Anything beyond this profile aggravates the temperature extremes. And that seems logical. It is logical because I'm reusing this vehicle over and over again. So I'm trying to send it through an environment that minimizes the wear and tear on the structure and the tile. And so we were already at the minimum environment as far as coming in during entry. We asked ourselves, is there any other option? There's no other option. If you want to come back home, you have got to come back through the atmosphere. And the way this vehicle flies, you have to get the nose up in the air and you have to protect yourself from the environment. And we put it in such an attitude as to minimize the thermal effects on the vehicle. We were there already. There was nothing we can do from an environment or a technique point of view. So we talked about that. We reinforced our beliefs. We reinforced our knowledge. We went through the what-if scenario. If we were wrong, what's the worst case? All that was talked about. Again, we had strong participation from our safety and quality, strong participation from our flight crew members, our flight control, our mission ops, all the technical and engineering disciplines, the appropriate management, and we concluded that it did not represent a safety concern. It represented a turnaround issue that we needed to go investigate. And we still believe that today, but as we gather more evidence, certainly more of the evidence may point us in a different direction, and we're very interested in that.
You mentioned an additional, Harry Forrestal from CBC Television, you mentioned an additional 32 seconds of data that you think may be in your computers. Can you tell us anything about the nature of that data, whether there is any question that it is in your computers, and how long it would take to extract and analyze?
It should take us no time at all to get that data. The reason it doesn't come forward right away is because we have criteria. When the data starts getting ratty or doesn't represent itself in the framework of the packaging of the data down to the ground, if it's not, for example, if it's not 80% or 90% good, then we throw up flags and don't allow it to be displayed to our flight control system. So we're going after data that we know we can extract. It may have been flagged as bad information because it violated this criteria, but yet we can go in and extract it, and let's say half the frames we're good. Well, we're going to go after that 50%. Maybe that information may lend something to our investigation. We've done it in the past. We did it during Challenger, and so we're going to go after this information.
Mark Carreau from the Houston Chronicle. And I have a timeline question for Ron Dittemore. Could you explain this flap or the foam issue on a timeline basis? When your engineering analysis saw the film in flight day or mission elapsed time, when you began an internal discussion of this issue and when you resolved it? And can you put it on some sort of day scale or something that we can relate to in terms of the launch or the landing?
I can certainly do that. I don't have all that information with me today. We will provide you with that information. Recall that